Good evening. Welcome to the Owen J. Roberts Board of School Directors November 13th working session. The Owen J. Roberts School District Board of Directors utilizes the working session process as a way to consider agenda items as one large committee for the purposes of discussion and debate in full view of the public. Time permitting, the committee chairperson may open the meeting up for public questions on items being discussed by the committee at that time. We are going to start this evening with a student transportation update. Mr. Gray.
Frank? You can go to the first slide, Frank. So way better than the last couple of years. So right now, as of today, Friday, we have 90 buses that have full-time drivers, which is, like I said, light years better than the last 2 years. In addition to those 90 buses with the full-time drivers, the budget allows for 4 additional buses, which I plan on adding at the beginning of the new year. Excuse me. So that's my plan for winter break, to add those 4 additional buses. I didn't think we would get to that point, but we're way ahead of schedule. Those 4 buses that we'll add will reduce ride times for students across the district. So we'll add them to the high school and middle school. Then it'll trickle down to elementary school. We're huge. We cover a lot of miles. Some of these buses have some substantial ride times. Some of the buses have fuller load counts. So we'll be able to spread that out across the 4 buses that we'll add over the Christmas winter break. It'll have buses getting to the elementary schools on time or early, and reduce some of the not overcapacity. We've never ran an overloaded bus, but as I've noticed in the last year, more students are riding. So we'll alleviate some of the students and the crowdedness on some of our buses. We also have 4 daily substitute drivers, which is something that we haven't had in the last 2 years. So we've come a long way. We've come a real long way. Those daily subs are drivers that have, in all sense and purposes, retired. They'll call that morning and say, "Hey, are you available?" If they know something's coming up. They have a life outside of driving a school bus, so they're not always available. But we do have 4 sub drivers, which we haven't had in quite a long time. I haven't had to combine a run this year, which is saying a lot because I think we did it every afternoon last year. So we've come a long, long way. Thank you. Next slide. So last year, at this point, we were 11 drivers short. At the end of the school year, we were 17 drivers short. The first day of school this year, we were 7 drivers short. And like I said, as of Friday, we were fully staffed. We've got 90 buses with full-time drivers. We have 3 full-time office staff and 1 full-time lot mechanic that are there every day. It's been almost a dream come true. Stress levels way down. So how did we get there? The increase from a driver's rate starting rate of $20.24 to $25 an hour was substantial. So we've got more applicants than we can field. Now, a lot of them get turned away because they don't meet all of our requirements, but they're still coming. So this started over last summer. We're still getting applicants. And we'll get to that point. But I can't give enough credit to the contractor for their investment in advertising and recruiting. I talked to their regional supervisor just the other day, and they increased their monthly budget 10 times. So where they would spend $15 a month on advertising and recruiting, they spent $10,000 last month. So it's not for lack of effort. So they're in it to win it, and they value our contract. If you've seen commercials, they've got flyers, they're everywhere. So in years past, there was never really the need for it. I never really saw anything, but I was at the gym the other day and saw a flyer for G&L. So their presence is now known, and we keep getting applicants. Next slide, please. This is the best part. We have 7 fully licensed CDL drivers without a route. So they're just kind of waiting. So 4 of those will be used up with the 4 buses I add. Right now, they're being utilized for sports and field trips. So where we had a window before where we couldn't necessarily do a field trip, we can do those trips outside of the parameters. Sports was a big issue. We had students leaving early. We don't have to do that anymore. So we should be able to cover all of our winter sports and well into the spring. If they don't do a sports trip or a field trip, they're riding along with other drivers, familiarizing themselves with the district, and covering for long and short-term absences for medical leave or whatnot. And a look ahead. This is where we are as of Friday, and they keep coming. I can't complain. So as of Friday, there were 6 interviews scheduled for this week. 3 applicants that have been approved and we're waiting for their completion of their paperwork. We have 4 drivers that are in class training right now. 2 that have finished their in-class training are waiting to take a permit test. And then we have 3 drivers currently receiving behind the wheel training. So there's potentially 18 more drivers that are potential to come on board in the very near future. Like I said, we've come a long way. We've come a long way. That's pretty much where we are and where we came from. Does anybody have any questions?
I just want to start by saying thank you and congratulations on this. This was certainly a hot button item for everyone in the district for the last 3 years. So to see success like this is really exciting for everybody.
Way more than I anticipated.
Yes. One quick question. There was the 3 full-time office staff. Does that include someone at the bus lot? I know
Yeah.
we used to have that and then that had gone away. So we're back to
For the
having
last
someone
2
there.
years, they were covering runs. They've been driving
Right.
almost every morning, every afternoon. You get a last minute call off and whoever was scheduled to be in the office would run out. So it put a lot of weight on and a lot of reliance on our office and my office staff. I would say in the last 2 weeks, they've all been there, AM and PM. So where they should be because they can't do their office duties and their and take care of their responsibilities at the lot. They're out driving a bus. So
And then I know we've done some changes to how we notify parents of delays or.
that has gotten 1,000 times better.
Okay.
A lot of that was a result of not having drivers. So when we have a driver, we don't necessarily have to combine. We don't have to combine runs. I think I've done it maybe twice all year, but for a non-public school where the load counts are smaller, so we can fit them all on a bus. So it hasn't been substantial. We haven't had to do it for the public school this year. I'm sure some of the elementary schools are glad to see a bus 26 back, for instance. We didn't have one at all last year, or a bus 61. It's light years better. So in terms of notifying parents, we're catching it much earlier. So we're getting the information from the bus lot. We can send out a quick text message, Skylert. We can follow with an email for the non-public school. So that is better as well.
Yeah, I got one question. Great update. Really appreciate it. I know the bus driver shortage last year was kind of attributed to the rate increase as well as competition in the area. Are you seeing any response from that competition to adjust their rates or?
Yes. I know some other local school district, neighboring school district that have increased their routes, but we're still at the top. So we've gotten some of those drivers from other neighboring school districts. But the interesting thing is, to me, is we're getting new drivers. So before I would see drivers come from different lots and they'd already come with their CDL and they'd come with their air brake endorsements and their passenger endorsements. They were just kind of hopping around for the sign-on bonus. We're getting new drivers that need to be trained from scratch. So it's bringing in a new labor pool. So now it seems more appealing. And for $25 an hour, for a part-time job or however you want to, I mean, it works for some people. And we're starting to see some new people without credentials apply for these jobs. Aides as well. I mean, we struggled to find aides last year. So the increase went across the board. So it was every CN or GNL contracted position, from aides to van drivers to bus drivers. So that bump was incremental in making this work.
Yeah, just a couple of things I want to add. Chris had mentioned the 4 additional buses that we're going to be adding in January. I just want to thank the board These are positions that we have budgeted over the last two budget cycles. We had budgeted 2 bus runs for last school year, and obviously we weren't able to meet those because of the lack of drivers. This year, we had budgeted 2 additional buses into our budget, and we're going to be able to bring all 4 on board now that we have the drivers to do that. So as Chris said, it will cut down on some of the ride times. Some of the pickups, hopefully in the morning, will be a little later as well. Along those same lines, just want to mention to the board that last year we had done a lot of work around school start times, and the biggest detriment that caused us to rethink that and pull the plug was the transportation issue. And we've been analyzing that throughout the fall. Obviously, transportation is looking much better than it did before. So we are going to give serious consideration to our start times. So I'm just telling you to look forward or anticipate some type of presentation or board recommendation regarding school start times moving forward.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are moving along to enrollment projections. Mr. Bentman.
All right, good evening, school board members. We have the annual district enrollment projections. So each year, the district engages through a vendor to do the mathematical, the statistical, and a geographical kind of look through for what enrollment's going to look like. It gives us a 10-year period. So I put together a enrollment projections presentation. Please keep in mind, right, the further you go out, the more less accurate the enrollments become. Although considering this, enrollment statistical projections are pretty accurate from a 5-year standpoint. So I'll probably just focus on the 5-year period from now until 5 years, but the data is in there. So go ahead, next slide, please. So here are the factors that are considered through the enrollment. So we obviously have changes in grade level and cohort from one year to the next, changes in residential development throughout the district. We have a large district, a large geographical area. Obviously, real estate prices and interest rates could have an effect on enrollment within the district. Looking at historical district data, private and parochial schools, we have 401 students that attend a private or parochial school within the district. Okay, that does not include charter schools. So that's a religious school or any type of private school that's funded by the taxpayer for their own children. And then obviously we have our charter school enrollment right there, which is could be a somewhat big variable in the situation. As you can see, our charter school enrollment has gone down over the years. You see that big year during the pandemic, and then slowly going down. I'm pretty happy to see this because charter schools do at times take money away from districts. So it's nice to see our students are coming to O&J and coming back more as we go through that process. All right, so I visit each residential as well as Mrs. Crumrine. So we tag team this year and spend time with each of the townships. So you can see that we have North Coventry is up first, kind of one of our bigger townships that has more residential and I should say commercial development. You can see starting off, we have something that they're working on through agreements and easements. So that's West Cedarville and 100, so 44 townhomes on 11 acres. This is like right across from PetSmart and that commercial area. We have maybe a small development or 3 new single homes, Sheep Hill Road small subdivision. Coventry Mall is always looking for options and considerations. I think you'll start to see that area develop over the next 10 to 20 years. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in that area, but there is a strong desire for apartments near the Coventry Mall. Small piece on East Erner Street, which is actually a pretty small street in our community. So we have sketch plans for 11 units, so apartment buildings. And the board is committed to not only open space, but supportive of commercial redevelopment in North Coventry. So East Coventry, we have Coventry Chase, which is behind East Coventry Elementary School, next to Coventry Glen, which is a rather large townhouse development. So that plan is approved. The village at Fricks Lock, that's across from the Coventry Self-Storage on 724. So if you're traveling towards East Vincent, that'll be right there, 724, right across from Coventry Self-Storage area. And then that would start kind of late spring, early summer of 2024. So that covers North and East Coventry. Go ahead, next slide, please. West Vincent Township, really no development. There is a proposal, and there was, and it was taken off and back on for a kind of a larger senior housing complex in West Vincent Township. So East Vincent Township is rather our largest township that has the most action. Bechtel Farm and Stony Run development. That's not far from East Vincent. It's kind of behind it and maybe about a parcel behind it. So you have some land and some single family homes, and then you have kind of a large area, so 85 units, and that's in the preliminary stage. We always talk about the Jones Motor Track that comes up each year. That's close to the old warehouse where we used to rent. That's a rather large 108 townhomes and 101 single units. And that's in the final stages. And then 506 Park Road and 50 South Wall Street, that's between our Park Springs development and Spring City Elementary School. So it's really right behind Spring City Elementary School, 14 townhomes, and that's a final approval. So that's kind of a small piece of land there. And not surprising, East Nant Mill, South Coventry Township, and Warwick Township are quiet and have been quiet for quite some time. So now we're going to kind of get into the projections of each building. And we have pretty hard numbers here. Like I said, the accuracy of this enrollment projection is pretty tight. We do see some accuracy within the first 5 years. 2023 is the year we're in, and then it comes out 10 years. So next year we'll have data on 2034, and we'll start with 2024. So East Coventry Elementary School, our newest building and one of our larger elementary school buildings, we're seeing a plus 40 increase from 24 to 29. And you can see the numbers there. We'll see some big increases in 2025 and then 2027, which will round out that increase. Go ahead, next slide. East Vincent Elementary School is our largest growth at East Vincent, our second newest building. We're at almost plus 100, so plus 92 students in a 5-year period. You can see we're going from 511 to 603. Then it kind of starts to level out past that, but you see 7, and then almost 4% increase during that 5-year period. So that's our biggest growth area, and I did go over some of the developments and things like that in that area, which may cause that increase. You'll also start to see a trend if you look back at past projections. Maybe more townships are more open to new developments, where some townships are open to having more open space and not rather big developments. So next up, we have North Coventry Elementary School, pretty stagnant throughout the not only the 5-year period, but 10-year. Obviously, you see a dip at the end of that, but from 554 to 548, you're seeing just a minus 6. And relatively negative growth between 1 to 2% during that large time frame. And then finally, French Creek. French Creek hit almost popped a little bit this year. So it's one of our larger buildings, I think, if not the largest populated building at the elementary level. During that time frame, West and North were the largest about 5 years ago, and now we're looking at French Creek. So we have a minus 51, though, in a 5-year period. So you'll start to see French Creek dip down over a 10-year span, but more importantly, these 5 years, we see some between 1 to 2%, and then kind of a rather larger one in 2028. Not really much going on in that area in regards to building at French. And then last but not least, we have West Vincent Elementary School, a minus 39 between that 5-year gap, and they're seeing comparable, some larger decreases this year and next year, and they start to level off between 1%, but then you do see a minus 5.5% in 2026, and a decrease over a large period of time there, but not much, right? And then the middle school and the high school are going to reflect all the buildings together, obviously, in the grade cohort. So at the middle school, 889 to 880, so really not noticeable. Obviously, you have maybe a bigger decrease in a 10-year time frame. And then rounding out the high school, you're seeing a minus 26 in that time frame, but overall 122 students if we're projecting out over 10 years. And then finally, the district one, relatively unchanged if you take all and aggregate all the schools together. Who knows? We'll see in 2033, but you could be looking at anywhere between 3 to 350 negative result in student enrollment. Of course, a lot can change, as I went over some of the factors in the beginning of the presentation. And then residential developments, our last page. This is kind of the stuff that I went over. And you can see a single unit detached is a single family home. An attached home is like a townhome. And then you see the Weatherstone community, which is a multifamily apartments, singles, and some other areas, and what that growth looks like over time. Questions?
Brad, going back to this slide on charter school enrollment, that's really good news. It's good to see that. Do you track students that are returning from brick and mortar, cyber charter, brick and mortar or cyber charter, and what their reasons are for returning?
We do. So last year we had a little bit of we had an outreach to all our students, our families that have students in charter schools to see, why they're attending. We were able to connect with some of them. Some of them weren't interested in conversation at all. So we did an outreach to those. When they come back, obviously their first point of contact would be one of the secretaries or the building principal. We'll ask them. We don't have a formal sheet where we capture all that information, but we are tracking students coming back and forth from not only cyber, but brick and mortar as well. We thought we would see this trend. If you can go back to that second page, Frank, we thought we would see it. It was our goal to see this trend, and we hope that continues.
Good news.
Why did kindergarten go up?
Yeah, so we're looking at from last year was 9, so at 9 to 15. So we had 6 more kindergartners enroll, and with kindergarten that could be full day, that could be parents wanting full day, and some of the charter schools have that opportunity to have full day. So we do see a good amount of our kindergarten students come back after kindergarten into first grade from charter school. So charter school, and then also other private schools are utilized to fill that gap, and then re-enrollment in first grade.
Any additional questions?
With the few increases that we do see, are there any situations for one of our elementary schools where a year would cause a significant issue, like we don't have enough classroom space or anything like that? Are they still all within reasonable tolerance for the buildings?
Yep, we're in good shape. We've taken a look at the space, and that's part of our kindergarten, full day kindergarten, or goal for the district goal to take a look at full day kindergarten, and that sort of calculation and building level spaces will be captured in that presentation.
On the slide related to some of the township developments, when it says final stage, does that mean it's just in the final stage of planning, or the township has approved that plan for it to go forward for development?
Final stages before approval.
Okay. And for East Vincent, I'm an East Vincent resident, so
Yep.
I'm just curious, did the roof track come up at all during any of those discussions as part of the development out there?
It did not, not on my end.
Jennifer, to go back to your question, some of the concerns I have when I look at the enrollment, French Creek is one of our older buildings, and you can see it's highly enrolled. Conversely, East Coventry is one of our newer buildings and is smaller enrolled. So we have a lot of capacity in that building. So as we look out a little bit further, we may have some conversations in the future about doing some redistricting, possibly at French Creek and possibly at East Vincent, looking at the numbers, the way they're going, how high they're going, and then the capacity that we have at East Coventry. But we haven't moved on any of that, but we've had some initial discussions after receiving these enrollment projections.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Curriculum and Special Education Committee, Mrs. Sabo.
Dr. Soder? So this is the time of year where we take a look at the program of studies. And so this evening, Mrs. Slade will be talking about changes for the high school. And go right ahead.
I have nothing nice for you to look at.
All right.
Don't strain your backs or your necks turning around if you don't feel like it. So contrary to last year, where I think our only new course was Introduction to Beekeeping, which is an incredibly popular course. We have quite a few this year to be proposed for 24-25. So the first two courses come from our world language department. They're both semester-long, asynchronous online courses, and neither requires any knowledge of that specific language in order to take that class. So they're both really accessible to anyone and everyone, grades 9 through 12. So Roman archaeology is the first. It's an introduction to the study of archaeology in the ancient world. And then we have French culture, which is a survey of all aspects of French culture, including fashion, art, food, even cheese. They listed in the course description. Then we have two courses for the social studies department. The first is AP Human Geography. So this course is a year-long, 1-credit in-person course. On your board backup, it was initially indicated as a course open to grades 11 and 12 only. The high school administration has expanded that since that initial backup was submitted to grades 9 through 12, and it would be available as an elective course for all students. It is also replacing the Modern World course. So Modern World is an elective course that's been open and offered at the high school for, my gosh, I would say 10 to 15 years. And I think it's kind of run its course. It's become less and less appealing to students. We're running fewer sections of it. So the AP Human Geography course is seen as an opportunity for a greater breadth of students in terms of level and also grades 9 through 12 to be able to take it. And, you know, to me also, I see it as a potential first AP course for a college prep student in 11th and 12th grade looking to kind of expand and challenge themselves. And it's an interesting batch of topics as well. So that is the reason for the change. But the course itself is an examination of popular dynamics, cultural patterns, political economic systems, all through a geographic lens. The next course is Psychology of Happiness. So just like the two world language courses, this is a semester-long, half-credit course online, asynchronous. It was inspired by Yale's Science of Wellbeing class, which is one of their most popular classes, and it's actually available online for anyone who wants to take it for free, which I thought was pretty interesting. But the course itself is an exploration of happiness and how one can go about attempting to increase one's happiness and well-being. The next three courses are from the Health and Phys Ed department. The first is Sports Management. It's a year-long 0.6 credit traditional course. The reason that one is 0.6 as opposed and year-long as opposed to the other year-long ones that are 1 credit is that the course meets 3 times a cycle. So the way that credits are determined for a course is how long it runs through the year, whether it's a semester or a year, and then how many days per cycle in our 5-day cycle. So as a 3-day course that meets, or 3-day per cycle course that meets all year long, it would be worth 0.6 credit for the sports management course. So that class is in person, and it's a study of the principles and practices of sports management. The next course is Intro to Athletic Coaching Education. It's a year-long 0.4 credit traditional class. So that one is a 2-day a cycle class all year long, and that goes through the knowledge and skills that are necessary to be a successful coach in any sport. It's not sports specific, it's just general coaching training. And then the final course from the Health and Phys Ed department is Personal Training. So this is a year-long 0.6 credit traditional course, just like sports management. And it covers the essentials of becoming a personal trainer and will actually prepare students to be able to sit for to become a certified personal trainer, which is a industry recognized credential that our students would be able to test for. For the math department, we have one course. It's Foundations of Programming, Python. So this is a semester-long half-credit class, and it's also in person. It is an introductory programming course, and the course is being offered. It's designed to better prepare our students in advance of taking either one of our AP Computer Science courses or our game design course. And then the final class is from our English department. It is Applied Communications 1. This course will replace the co-taught College Prep English 11 class as well as the standard English 12 class. The idea behind it is that students from both of those grades would be in Applied Communications 1 next year, and then Applied Communications 2 would be proposed next year and developed next year in advance for the 25-26 school year. So really it's designed to provide practical English and communication skills. So things like interviewing, public speaking, presentations, writing business communications, all of these very, very practical and important skills for our students. And like I said, that Applied Communications 2 would be designed next year and offered in the subsequent year. Questions?
Thank you. I had a quick question about the AP Human Geography
Mhm.
class. So I know for freshmen that has to be an elective because it doesn't meet the requirement for PDE for history
Mhm.
for ninth graders.
Mhm.
For 10th and 11th and 12th graders, does it also have to be an elective, or at some point could it sub in for the history requirement?
It is an elective requirement, or elective would count for elective credit regardless of the grade that the student would take it in. So they would take it in addition to either the Western Civ course in ninth grade, the US History class in 10th grade, American Government in 11th, or take on its own as a senior, since there isn't a fourth year of social studies required.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions. I think it's great that you're refreshing the program, weeding out what's undersubscribed and adding some of these very interesting courses. I hope you're looking at alternative ways of scheduling so that students can get to all these courses
Mhm.
over 4 years of high school.
Yeah, so I keep pretty tight track of the courses that are running and which years they're running and how many courses are not running. And you know, it's very important to me to build a really good schedule, because it is the vehicle that drives our entire student body and staff for an entire year. And I take that endeavor very seriously. And you know, the general idea is to provide the most amount of students with the most amount of their requests. And so a decision like the Applied Communications class having 2 grade levels in that course gives us the potential to run more sections of that one course rather than several sections of 2 separate courses. And that will increase the chances that we can use our staffing more effectively. And then the same thing would go for the Human Geography class, where that is now an elective course. That's a year-long class, so you don't have to worry about students having a conflict in one semester or another. They're in that same period the whole year long. And it's open for students in 4 grades. So that really has the potential to catch a lot of different types of students and provide them with, like I said before, a junior or senior that may not have taken an AP course yet. It's a great entry level, if you will, AP course if they haven't taken one already.
I had one follow-up question with
Mhm.
the applied communication. So you'll be offering both regular English,
Mhm.
11th to 12th grade English, and this option.
Yeah, so the Applied Communications 1 class is going to replace our College Prep English 11 class that is the co-taught class. Okay, the regular College Prep English 11 course will still run. The AP Language and Literature will still run. The Literature of Change, which is our hybrid course for 11th graders, none of those classes are changing. So this course replaces that CP English 11 co-taught class and the standard English 12 class. So those will go away. All students that were in those 2 classes in preceding years will go into Applied Communications 1. And so then you have 2 grades worth of students. It'll be 11th and 12th grade students in that course next year. And then the following year, all of the 11th and 12th grade students who had previously taken one of those 2 courses would be in Applied Communications 2. So they would alternate year to year.
So it doesn't create a scheduling challenge that students are taking either
Yes,
or. Okay.
exactly.
I admire your ability to keep that all in your head.
I've done this for a bit, so,
I know, we've talked.
yes.
Thank
Actually,
you.
I had a question just to follow up on that last comment that Dr. Bertoli made. As far as the communication to the students, and I'm thinking back when I was in high school, I wouldn't have the first clue how to navigate this and scheduling, and even being aware that these courses were available to me. So how is that being communicated? I assume there's guidance counselors that are working with the students
Yeah,
to pick these courses and make them aware that they're available.
so I work pretty closely with Mr. Pagano, who's the high school counselor who handles the course selection process. So we meet pretty regularly in the fall leading up to the start of the course selection process, which really begins in December with the opening of the recommendation window for academic teachers to make their initial recommendations. And so at that point, the teachers are meeting with their students and having a conversation about what course potentially they would initially recommend them for. We recognize that that's super early in the school year, and so they are not by any means final. It's just our starting point by which we start to develop our staffing. And then in January, late January, we have course selection night, which is available for parents. We publicize that widely. It's most commonly attended by parents of rising ninth graders. And our counselors also do a Q&A with eighth graders in their social studies classes, and also provide them with time where they're there to request their electives and health and phys ed courses with the high school counselors present so they can answer the most questions. And then the high school counselors are also in our high school lunches for about a week. And they find that with the high school students, they have fewer questions and they know who their counselors are, so they're ready and willing to approach them in the cafeteria. So, we do a lot of different things to educate students and teachers and also families.
Quick question. You said that the applied communications one will be replacing the 11th grade CP co-taught course.
Mhm.
So will that mean that there'll be the opportunity for then the applied communications one to be also a co-taught course?
Potentially, yeah. So which courses end up having special education teachers pushing into those classes is really dependent on a number of different factors, including how many sections of seminar or learning support have to be running for any given grade. Our special ed, we have 2 teachers per grade for general learning support for our students. So it's a total of 8 teachers, and we have to figure out, and Mr. Milnes kind of drives this process, how many sections of seminar are needed to accommodate the needs of those students in those grades. And then we have our courses where those special ed teachers typically push into. So the co-taught English classes 9, 10, and 11 have always had support teachers pushing into them. Usually biology, and then the algebra courses as keystone classes. Those are the ones that we prioritize for push-ins. And then if we have any left over, then we strategically make decisions based on a variety of other factors where else we would do it. But it's entirely possible that implied communications 1 class and 2 in the subsequent year would have a push-in teacher. Mm-hmm.
Since we're on the topic of that applied communication course, is there any risk in not incorporating applied communications 2 in this recommendation and waiting till next year? Is there any risk that we may miss that inclusion?
Is there any risk that by not offering level 2 next year?
By not adding it to the recommendation this year and waiting till next year that we may?
I've been in this role for a long time. This is my 8th year as an assistant principal, and I was a high school counselor for 16 years before that year at O&J. And to the best of my recollection, we've never had an issue where we haven't been able to propose a course that our department chairs and curriculum coordinators and the high school administration and Dr. Soder feel is warranted to be offered, and then run that course. So I don't expect that would be the case with this going forward.
You may think I'm a little geeky, but I just love the idea of Roman archaeology. I mean, it's such a unique course for high school. I mean, it's really something I would expect in like a college. And I want to take it. But how did you come up with this really, unique idea?
How do we come up with the idea?
Yeah.
It's really our teachers, our teachers are passionate about whatever subject that they teach. And so in many cases, these newly proposed courses are are fruits of that passion. It's something that they're interested in, that they feel that students would be interested in. So this Roman archaeology course is a class that Mrs. Susadale, our Latin teacher, proposed. She proposed the online mythology a couple of years ago, and that's been a big hit. Enough kids have seen Clash of the Titans, either the original or the newer one, that they want to do that. So we put these classes out there and see who's interested. And just like beekeeping last year with Mr. Reichley, he loves beekeeping, and now we have a class full of kids that are learning about beekeeping. So
I commend you for thinking out the box.
sure, absolutely, it's really our teachers that drive that process.
Any other questions from the board?
I don't have a question, just a comment. I really appreciate these courses, looking at them and previewing them in the past. And the one thing I'll say in particular that I like is that they're open for all students. There are no restrictions. So all these courses that we're putting in here, Nick, being a former school administrator, years ago, you had to give your right arm to get into certain classes, or have an A since kindergarten to get into a certain class. And I just think it's really important that we continue to open up courses for all students. So I appreciate that in these new courses.
Absolutely.
I just want to open up questions to the public. If there's any questions about the specific curriculum. Do you want to, Frank? The public can't.
He's going to give you.
I just wondered, I heard this rumor, but are you guys going to look at the 6-day possibility cycle for the high school kids at all in the near future?
So that's a great question. You can email the board with that question if you'd like. We're having questions just from the presentation from tonight. So I would suggest you email the board with that. Any other questions about today's presentation? Thank you. Appreciate it. I would like to make a motion to move the changes to the 2024-2025 high school program of studies to the full board for approval as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Slade, for your presentation.
So for our middle school changes, we just have one class. You know that we have a lot of options at the high school for electives. In the middle school, there are some choices, a little more limited. So there is one that the language arts department would like to add, and that's public speaking. And so for our students who have options for language arts, they can take creative writing. There are some more remedial type reading support, but this is something that some students have expressed an interest in. And so this is something that the middle school would like to add for next year.
Any questions from the board?
So where would this fit into a middle school curriculum, like 7th or 8th, or how would it fit into?
This is a 7th or 8th grade course, and this really is dependent on the level of support, if the student has reading support in their schedule, or if they are in a performance music program, then those two things can limit their electives. If they are taking general music, then this is a course that they would be able to add in their schedule. There are just many more requirements in our middle school schedule than compared to the high school. So a student who was maybe not having a language or not having a performance music would be able to add this 3 days of cycle.
Any questions from the public about this presentation? Thank you, Dr. Soder. I make a motion to move the changes to the 2024-2025 middle school program of studies to the full board for approval as presented.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Sabo. We are moving to Legislative and Policy Committee. Dr. Melnisak.
Okay. Agenda item 5.01, involving policy 006 meetings. We had looked at this a little bit last time. There is concern about combining school districts and what kind of vote should there be. The policy as is states it's, I believe, a majority of board members. The PSBA had recommended changing it to a majority of members at a quorum. So there was a discussion that we do not like that, so we just have gone back to the original policy. So any other questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to move that one forward?
I'll move.
Okay, next agenda item is policy 216.1. There were some questions from the board last time in regards to what constitutes a minor.
So with this, a minor would be a child under 18, keeping in mind that if we're aware of a situation, then we could use this policy. The difference is if the student is an adult and we might not know about it. So a minor would fall into the juvenile probation system if they are adjudicated. And so at times we might not know about an adult, but this policy does cover any of our students within the district if we're aware.
My question was, how is an adult student handled differently from a minor student in this situation?
Yeah,
Is there
so
a separate policy for each case, or?
there's not. So there is just one policy, and this is the one policy for any of our students. When it's directly related to a juvenile student and the language within here, it connects with that student if they're under 18. The difference between a minor and an adult is that as a minor, we would know about it. So if it was a serious incident involving weapons, alcohol, drugs, or violence, we would be aware because they would go into the court system and then they would be assigned a PO, a probation officer, and then they would be in that system, and then we would then be able to have that information. If it's an adult, someone that's 18 years or older, we might or might not know about it based off of what the incident is and what the result is.
Wouldn't we want to know about those incidents in either case?
We would, yes, but this policy only relates at times to juveniles. So if they're a juvenile, we would know, but if it's an adult, we might or might not know if it's reported to us based off of the student reporting it to us or court system, which depends. Because this could be happening outside our property, not necessarily on our property. So keep that in mind. This is an incident where any one of those big items comes up during the school day. Yes, we're going to know about it. We would know about it. We would deal with it. But at times it might not be within our kind of jurisdiction on campus.
I think this policy makes the assumption that 95% of our students are under 18. And so it's adjudicated that way, but the 5% that may be over 18, we would keep any discipline discipline records that we supplemental discipline records on an adult as well. So I think the policy is just written for the majority of the students. I don't think it it has any intention of, if you're 18, then all bets are off. We don't keep records on you. I think it's just defining the 95% of the students in our district.
So should there be another policy that addresses the adult students?
PSBA does not have a policy to address those students in this specific situation for supplemental discipline records. So it's just referring to the records for students that are required to not only share with other districts, but districts.
Yeah, I have no problems with this policy, but I feel like there is a hole in the policies in general related to adult students. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know what I mean?
I agree.
Do you
And
understand
the
what I'm
question,
saying?
right, the question is, are we more protected by not having the policy, or would we be more protected if we had a policy for the students that are over
I
18?
mean, I think this policy protects us for the adjudicated minors. So are we at, seems like there's a hole, so, all right, a student turns 18, they commit a crime, and now we don't have a record policy for them, per se. I don't know, I'm not.
I think you gotta look at the
think
nature
there's-
of what a supplemental disciplinary record holds, right? For a minor student, reading the policy, if they're transferring in district from another district, the previous district has the supplemental record from the court, and they would pass it along to us. We might not necessarily have a record for an 18-year-old or an adult student from the previous, because they don't know. So how would they pass it to us? And B, how do we get it for a student who's considered an adult, right? Unless it's, if I'm paraphrasing Will correctly, either self-identified by the student, there is no mechanism for an adult crime to be reported to a school district, even though they're
Alright.
still a high school student.
So, okay, so the mechanism that is there is that adjudicated minors are automatic, the system automatically reports those crimes to the school. And so this policy makes sure that those records are transferred between districts or between
Correct.
whatever. But there's no mechanism for the state judiciary system to send records for adults to schools. Is that the problem? So this is like, it's not a school district level hole, it's a
Correct.
state judicial district level hole. Okay.
And
All right.
remember, we're talking about, records are different amongst minors versus adults.
No,
And
of
so
course, yeah.
this policy is born out of the fact that those records are handled differently in general.
Yeah.
Not just by school districts.
Okay.
And access is limited in different ways as well.
So real quick
Contact our
question.
state rep.
Do we get their records if they transfer here as an adult but had a file when they were a
Yes.
juvenile?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any further questions? Do we have a motion to move this policy to the full board?
So,
Anybody?
so moved.
I'll second. And I don't know if I have to make an amendment or whatnot, but we need to second the last one also.
What,
We need a second for the last one also.
Should I second for the last one then?
Yeah,
Second for last. You did,
First
yes.
Warren seconded it.
No.
Oh.
okay, we all set. All caught up with motions. Our next policy is policy 143. The changes are incredible. There's only one phrase that's changed in the policy. The phrase "No Child Left Behind Act" was removed and is replaced just by the more generic term "federal law." So that's good. Is the No Child Left Behind Act still in place?
No.
So that's kind of why we, the PSBA said, let's just make it more generic.
Yeah.
All right, then do we have a policy for this one? We finally found one. Well, let's. Give me
Before
someone
David-
give me a motion quick.
Yeah,
So
Move
moved,
it forward
so
to the full
moved,
board.
so moved.
second.
Okay, great. All right, next is policy 251. Students experiencing homelessness, foster care, and other educational instability. The change here was just omitting the final paragraph. And I'll get that up in a second, but that was recommended by our legal counsel. If you want to go into more detail about.
Yeah, so obviously the law changed this year and students can stay in the school until their 22nd birthday. So if a student turns 22 on September 5th or September 5th, that would be their last day of school. That law has changed. So it used to be 20 till they're 21. So this then follows in accordance with the new guidelines.
Oh, and there was a question about no rep. What is that term?
That's not this policy.
That's a different
Oh,
policy.
oh no, I'm getting ahead. There's no rep down here. Anyway, so do we have a motion?
Does it?
To move this policy then? Forward to the
So
full
moved.
board? Okay,
Second.
so now we get to no rep. Policy 251, students experiencing homelessness, foster care, and other educational instability. It seems the PSBA has been giving us this policy. Oh,
Yeah, we're on 13 now.
oh, and regulations, my apologies. Okay, I'm good now. So, these are regulations, more so for us to acknowledge. Did anybody have any questions in regards to either a regulation? Then do we have a motion to acknowledge? We don't have to do that. I want to make sure I'm doing it by the book. Okay.
Wait, what's the no rep?
So a NORA, notice of recommended educational placement for a student with an IEP, and a NORA for a student with a GIEP. That's a document that the parents sign at the conclusion of an evaluation and IT meeting in order for the child to get services for the district.
All right. That will be it for LMP. Questions?
Wasn't it 113 on there?
Oh, I kind of combined it. They're essentially the same thing, right? There's another, two regulations, but the next one we're going to talk about is 113B. Do we have a motion to acknowledge that one? My apologies. My apologies for being a total mess tonight. It's that Roman archaeology. I just can't get it out of my mind. I turned 60 a little bit ago.
I think that is all. We are adjourned. Thank you.